The serene neighborhood of Maplewood was a place where everyone felt safe. With its neatly trimmed hedges and cheerful houses, it exuded charm and simplicity. Residents often greeted each other with warm smiles, sharing small talk over white picket fences. It was a quiet community where nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary, until the morning of October 15, 2023. Clara Evans, a 33-year-old housewife, lived in a modest home on Elm Street with her husband, Greg, and their young son, Ethan. To the outside world, they seemed like the perfect family. Clara spent her days tending to her garden, baking cookies for Ethan's school events, and organizing neighborhood potlucks. But beneath the surface of her seemingly idyllic life, Clara harbored a secret that threatened to shatter everything she had built. It began innocently enough. Clara struck up a conversation with Aaron Reed, the garbage collector who serviced their street. Aaron, a man in his late 30s with a rugged demeanor and easy charm, often lingered a little longer near Clara's house. Their exchanges grew from casual pleasantries to more personal conversations, and soon Clara found herself looking forward to his visits. There was an energy in Aaron that Clara felt was missing from her life. He made her laugh, paid her compliments, and listened to her in a way Greg no longer did. What started as innocent banter quickly escalated. Clara began sending Aaron flirtatious texts, careful to delete them before Greg could see. Aaron reciprocated with equal fervor, and their connection deepened. Clara knew it was wrong, but she convinced herself it was harmless, an escape from the monotony of her days. She took risks she never thought she would, inviting Aaron inside when Greg was at work and Ethan was at school. Their affair, though brief, was intense and all-consuming. Over time, guilt gnawed at Clara. She wanted to end things with Aaron and focus on repairing her marriage. Greg had recently suggested a family vacation and a chance to reconnect. Clara saw it as an opportunity to start fresh and leave her indiscretions behind. She told Aaron it was over, expecting him to understand. But Aaron's reaction was anything but understanding. He became relentless, sending her messages and demanding explanations. He showed up at her house uninvited, his demeanor shifting from charming to menacing. Clara began to fear the man she had once been drawn to. Desperate to distance herself, she confided in her closest friend, who urged her to cut all ties and be cautious. On that fateful morning, Greg returned home from an early shift to find Clara lying motionless in their bedroom. She appeared to be peacefully asleep, but when Greg tried to wake her, she wouldn't wake up. Perplexed, he realized something was wrong. He called the paramedics, and when they arrived, she was pronounced dead. There were no signs of struggle, no visible injuries, and nothing in the room appeared out of place. It looked like a natural death. Detective Rachel Monroe was assigned to the case. A veteran investigator known for her meticulous attention to detail, Monroe felt uneasy about the scene. Clara was young and healthy with no history of medical issues. Something didn't add up. As she began her investigation, she knew this case would be far from straightforward. Detective Rachel Monroe stood in Evans's bedroom, her sharp eyes scanning every detail. The scene was calm, almost too calm. Clara Evans lay on the bed, her hands resting gently at her sides. There were no signs of a struggle, no visible injuries, and no items out of place. At first glance, it looked like she had simply drifted off to sleep and never woken up. But Monroe knew better. Years of experience had taught her to trust her instincts, and something about the scene felt off. She noted the faint scent of perfume lingering in the air, the carefully folded blanket at the foot of the bed, and the untouched glass of water on the nightstand. These details painted a picture of normalcy, but Monroe couldn't shake the feeling that it was a facade. She spoke briefly with Greg Evans, who was visibly shaken. He recounted his discovery of Clara's body, his voice trembling as he described how he had tried to wake her. Greg's grief appeared genuine, but Monroe knew better than to rule anyone out so early in an investigation. She asked him routine questions about Clara's health and whether she had shown any signs of distress recently. Greg shook his head, insisting that Clara had been perfectly fine the day before. The forensic team carefully examined Clara's body and the surrounding area. Monroe's attention turned to Clara's phone, which sat on the dresser. She bagged it as evidence, knowing it could hold vital clues. Phones often told stories that people wouldn't, and Monroe was determined to uncover Clara's. Later that day, Monroe reviewed the preliminary autopsy report. The medical examiner noted no obvious cause of death. Toxicology tests were ordered, but those would take time. In the meantime, Monroe focused on building a timeline of Clara's last hours. Interviews with neighbors revealed that Clara had been seen tending to her garden the previous afternoon. She had chatted briefly with Mrs. Donnelly, the elderly woman next door, who mentioned nothing unusual about Clara's behavior. Greg provided more details about their evening. He said they had dinner as a family and watched a movie before he went to bed early, leaving Clara awake in the living room. When pressed, he admitted they had been arguing recently, but insisted it was nothing serious. Monroe's curiosity deepened when Clara's phone was unlocked. Among the mundane messages from friends and family, a separate messaging app caught her attention. It contained a series of deleted conversations, but the fragments that remained suggested a relationship far outside the bounds of her marriage. Monroe's heart quickened as she pieced together hints of flirtation and secrecy. Digging further, Monroe requested security footage from nearby houses and the city's street cameras. A review of footage from the night of Clara's death revealed an unusual gap in activity. A vehicle had stopped briefly near the Evans home before disappearing from view. Monroe's mind raced as she considered the implications. She instructed her team to dig deeper into Clara's communications and connections. There was no clear evidence yet, but her instincts told her this wasn't the open and shut case it appeared to be. Clara's secrets were starting to surface, and Monroe was determined to uncover every one of them. The detective sat at her desk, sifting through the data pulled from Clara Evans's phone. The deleted messages hinted at a secret Clara had tried to bury. Though many of the messages were fragmented or incomplete, they revealed flirtatious exchanges with an unknown individual. Monroe made a note to trace the app's metadata, hoping to uncover the identity of Clara's mysterious correspondent. Meanwhile, the forensic team provided their findings. They confirmed there were no defensive wounds or signs of a struggle on Clara's body. However, the toxicology report brought a chilling revelation. Traces of a potent sedative were found in Clara's bloodstream. The drug was known for its ability to render a person unconscious quickly and leave little evidence behind. Monroe revisited the footage of the vehicle spotted near the Evans house on the night of Clara's death. The grainy image was not clear enough to identify a license plate, but the make and model stood out. It was a standard utility vehicle commonly used by municipal workers. Monroe instructed her team to cross-reference the vehicle type with records of workers who had been in the area recently. It was a long shot, but Monroe was accustomed to following every lead, no matter how small. As the investigation progressed, Monroe's team interviewed Clara's close friends. One of them, a neighbor named Lydia Grant, hesitated before revealing that Clara had confided in her about feeling trapped. Clara had mentioned someone she'd become involved with, describing the relationship as exciting but dangerous. Lydia didn't know the person's identity, but recalled Clara's growing anxiety in the weeks before her death. The detective's suspicions deepened when she examined Clara's financial records. A series of cash withdrawals, all made in small amounts, suggested Clara might have been trying to conceal her spending. The withdrawals coincided with dates and locations that aligned with the timeline of her secret messages. It was becoming clear that Clara's death wasn't the result of natural causes or random misfortune. Someone close to her had something to hide. The breakthrough came when Monroe's team traced the metadata from the messaging app. It led to an account registered under a pseudonym, but the associated email address provided a crucial lead. Monroe's tech expert tracked the email back to a public Wi-Fi network used in a local area, specifically near the municipal utility office. The puzzle pieces were beginning to fit together, but Monroe needed more concrete evidence. She revisited the Evans home, taking a closer look at Clara's belongings. This time, she focused on items that might have been overlooked. In Clara's closet, hidden behind a row of neatly hung dresses, Monroe found a small box. Inside were trinkets, receipts, and a handwritten note. The note contained phrases of endearment. The handwriting did not match Greg's. Back at the station, Monroe's team continued piecing together the puzzle. They now had enough evidence to suggest that Clara had been involved in a clandestine relationship. While the identity of her lover remained elusive, the trail was narrowing. As Monroe stared at the evidence board, she felt the weight of the case pressing down on her. Clara's secrets were dangerous, and uncovering the truth meant untangling a web of deception. But Monroe was resolute. The path forward was murky, but she knew she was getting closer to uncovering what really happened on the night Clara Evans died. The detective's persistence was beginning to pay off. The threads of the case were weaving together, and the once elusive truth about Clara Evans' life was starting to emerge. With the metadata trace pointing to a public Wi-Fi near the municipal utility office, Monroe's team began to investigate employees who worked in the vicinity. The utility office maintained records of vehicle assignments, and Monroe requested access to logs for the night of Clara's death. Cross-referencing the make and model of the vehicle spotted near the Evans home, her team identified a match. The vehicle had been signed out by a garbage collector assigned to the area, a man named Aaron Reeds. Aaron Reeds was an unassuming figure in his mid-30s, with no prior criminal record and a reputation among colleagues as quiet and hard-working. His file seemed ordinary, but Monroe knew better than to take appearances at face value. She ordered a background check, which revealed financial struggles and a string of temporary relationships that had ended poorly. She decided it was time to bring Aaron in for questioning. Before doing so, she and her team combed through his recent activities, looking for connections to Clara. They found an overlap between Aaron's work routes and Clara's neighborhood. Further, his bank statements showed small purchases made at a cafe Clara was known to frequent. The evidence wasn't damning yet, but it was enough to deepen Monroe's suspicion. Meanwhile, the toxicology report confirmed that the sedative found in Clara's system was a prescription drug. Monroe's team checked local pharmacies, searching for any indication of a recent purchase. One pharmacy reported that a prescription for the same sedative had been filled under Aaron Reed's name 2 weeks before Clara's death. Monroe was careful to build her case methodically. She reviewed footage from a camera near the utility office, grainy but clear enough to show Aaron leaving in the vehicle matched to the scene. The timestamp aligned with the window of time when Clara was believed to have died. Before confronting Aaron, Monroe revisited Clara's financial records and found another critical link. Among the cash withdrawals Clara had made, one was near an ATM close to Aaron's residence. It appeared that their connection extended beyond casual encounters, and Monroe suspected it had grown into something far more intimate and dangerous. Armed with mounting evidence, Monroe secured a warrant to search Aaron Reed's apartment. Inside, she found items that tied him directly to Clara: a scarf identified as hers, hidden in a drawer, and a handwritten card that matched the note found in Clara's closet. These discoveries transformed Aaron from a person of interest to a prime suspect. As the detectives examined the scarf, a chilling realization struck them. The fabric bore faint marks, consistent with the kind of ligature that could have been used to strangle Clara without leaving visible traces. The final pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and Monroe's determination hardened. Clara's life had been cut short by someone she trusted, and now Monroe was closer than ever to ensuring justice. With a suspect in her sights and evidence building, she prepared for the next steps. Aaron Reed might have thought his actions were well concealed, but the walls were closing in. Clara's secrets were no longer buried, and Monroe was determined to bring the truth to light. The detectives were now certain they were on the right path. Aaron Reed, the quiet garbage collector, was no longer just a shadow in Clara Evans' life. He was the storm that had brought it to a violent end. The evidence was compelling, and the police were building a case strong enough to hold up in court. Aaron was brought in for questioning. Monroe observed him carefully as he sat across from her in the interrogation room. His demeanor was calm but guarded, his eyes betraying a flicker of unease when Monroe mentioned Clara's name. She started with routine questions about his job and daily activities, gradually steering the conversation toward the night of Clara's death. Aaron's answers were measured, but Monroe's team had already corroborated inconsistencies. While Aaron claimed he had been home the entire evening, the surveillance footage from the utility office and the vehicle logs painted a different picture. Monroe presented these findings subtly, watching for cracks in Aaron's composed exterior. He denied any wrongdoing, but his carefully rehearsed denials began to falter when Monroe mentioned the scarf found in his apartment. The forensic analysis of the scarf revealed fibers that matched those on Clara's body. Additionally, faint traces of the sedative were detected on the fabric, further linking it to the crime. Monroe's team also uncovered digital evidence tying Aaron to Clara's private messaging app. Despite his attempts to delete incriminating data, fragments of their exchanges were recovered, highlighting a turbulent relationship that had grown increasingly volatile in the weeks leading to her death. Witness statements further cemented the case. Clara's neighbor, Lydia Grant, came forward with additional details. She had seen Aaron lingering near the Evans home on several occasions, though she had initially dismissed it as routine work. Lydia also recalled hearing Clara mention that she felt suffocated by someone who wouldn't leave her alone. While she hadn't known it was Aaron at the time, the pieces now aligned. Monroe's team pressed forward, searching for more tangible evidence. A search of Aaron's work locker yielded another discovery, a torn page from Clara's journal. The entry was a candid confession of her desire to end the affair and repair her marriage. It was raw, emotional, and damning, a window into the desperation that Clara must have felt in her final days. As the case against Aaron solidified, Monroe considered his motives. The text exchanges, the journal entry, and Lydia's observations all pointed to a man who had become dangerously obsessed. Clara's attempt to sever ties had been the catalyst for his rage. The sedative, the staged scene, and the calculated disposal of evidence revealed a chilling level of premeditation. The final blow to Aaron's defense came when the pharmacy's security footage confirmed that he had purchased the sedative under his name. He had signed for it, unwittingly leaving a paper trail that tied him directly to the crime. Monroe's team presented the evidence to the district attorney, who agreed there was enough to charge Aaron Reed with Clara's murder. An arrest warrant was issued, and Aaron was taken into custody. As he was led out of the station in handcuffs, the calm facade he had maintained cracked. For a fleeting moment, he glanced back at Monroe, his expression a mixture of defiance and resignation. The case was far from over. A trial loomed on the horizon, and Monroe knew the defense would exploit any weakness in the prosecution's narrative. But for now, Clara Evans had a voice, and the truth of her tragic end was finally coming to light. The courtroom was packed as the trial of Aaron Reed began. Clara Evans's death had captivated the public, and the prosecution's case promised to be both gripping and damning. Detective Rachel Monroe took the stand on the second day, presenting the evidence her team had painstakingly gathered. Her calm, measured testimony outlined the timeline of events, the connection between Aaron and Clara, and the physical evidence that tied him to the crime. The prosecution's opening arguments painted a chilling picture of obsession and betrayal. They described Aaron Reed as a man consumed by his desire for Clara, unwilling to accept her decision to end their relationship. They highlighted the sedative in Clara's system, the scarf bearing traces of the drug, and the surveillance footage showing Aaron's movements on the night of her death. Each piece of evidence was carefully introduced, creating an airtight narrative of premeditation and murder. Aaron's defense team, however, worked to sow doubt. They questioned the reliability of the surveillance footage, the potential for contamination of the scarf, and even Clara's state of mind. They suggested she might have been under pressure or dealing with personal issues unrelated to Aaron. Their strategy hinged on portraying the relationship as consensual and Clara's death as an unfortunate accident rather than a calculated act of violence. The jury listened intently as the prosecution brought forward additional witnesses. Lydia Grant, Clara's neighbor, recounted seeing Aaron near the house on multiple occasions and shared her observations about Clara's growing anxiety. A forensic analyst detailed the findings from the scarf and confirmed the presence of fibers matching those on Clara's body. The pharmacy clerk testified about Aaron's purchase of the sedative, providing a critical link between him and the drug used in the crime. One of the most compelling moments came when the prosecution introduced Clara's torn journal entry, found in Aaron's work locker. The entry was read aloud, revealing Clara's desperate plea to end the affair and rebuild her marriage. The raw emotion in her words left a palpable silence in the courtroom. The prosecution argued that this was the moment Aaron realized he was losing control, and his obsession drove him to kill. Aaron himself took the stand in his defense. He denied any intention to harm Clara and claimed their relationship had been consensual until the very end. Especially when confronted with the overwhelming evidence of his actions. His attempts to explain away the inconsistencies in his story only deepened the jury's skepticism. As the trial drew to a close, the prosecution delivered a powerful closing argument. They reminded the jury of Clara's life, her dreams, and the trust she had placed in Aaron. They painted him as a predator who exploited that trust, leading to her tragic and unnecessary death. The defense's closing arguments tried to reframe the narrative, but the weight of evidence against Aaron was undeniable. After several days of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Aaron was charged guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted with emotion as the judge read the sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For Clara's family and friends, justice had been served, though it could never bring her back. Detective Monroe watched as Aaron Reed was led away in handcuffs. The case had been one of the most challenging of her career, but the resolution brought a sense of closure. Clara Evans's story had been heard, her voice restored through the relentless pursuit of truth. Monroe hoped it would serve as a reminder of the dangers of obsession and the importance of seeking justice, no matter how buried the truth might seem. With Aaron Reed sentenced to life in prison, the case of Clara Evans's murder officially came to a close. The courtroom's finality left an indelible mark on everyone involved, particularly Detective Rachel Monroe. The journey to uncover the truth had been fraught with challenges, but her determination ensured that Clara's voice was not silenced. For Clara's husband, Greg, and their son, Ethan, the verdict offered a semblance of closure. Though the pain of losing Clara would never fade, knowing that justice had been served brought them some peace. They chose to honor Clara's memory by focusing on the love and joy she had brought into their lives. Aaron Reed's incarceration marked the end of his dangerous obsession. Alone in his cell, he faced the consequences of his actions, his fixation having destroyed not only Clara's life, but his own as well. The ripple effects of his crime served as a somber reminder of the devastation wrought by unchecked desires and selfishness. Detective Monroe reflected on the case as she returned to her office. While satisfied with the outcome, she knew the fight for justice was never truly over. Each case carried its burdens, but it was the pursuit of truth that gave her work meaning. She resolved to continue her mission, driven by the knowledge that even in darkness, justice could prevail. The town of Maplewood slowly began to heal, its residents carrying the lessons of Clara's story with them. Her tragedy served as a stark warning about the consequences of secrecy and obsession, but also as a testament to the strength of those who seek the truth. Life went on, but Clara's memory endured, a symbol of resilience and hope in the face of loss. Thank you for listening to True Crime Pulse. Share your thoughts on the story, like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next episode when we bring you more crime stories, stay safe.